So, as I promised, roughly 7 o'clock, we're going to get started with what I'm calling PPC 101. So this is basically what this is about. Is we're not going to be talking about. I'll just give everyone a chance to get settled down first, and hopefully I got. Can everyone hear me? Okay? In the back, yeah, we're good. Okay. Okay. I'll just give everyone a chance to get settled, maybe rearrange their chairs if they need to. Okay, so PPC 101. What makes the PPC different? You know, we're not going to be talking so much about the platform of the PPC, but more about the structure. Because what we have now in Canada, we have 4 parties that are systemically corrupt, meaning that even with good people in those parties, we see the Conservative Party, there's good people in that party, but because the way the party is structured, there is no way for that goodness to become manifested within the party and within our country. So the structure is different because Maxime Bernier, he was a Conservative, he was a cabinet minister. He knew very well that the Conservative Party was corrupt. He was a minister of trade. He almost became the leader of the Conservative Party when Andrew Scheer became the leader. It was a very, very close race. He would have been Prime Minister, and he would have been battling all the internal structure of the Conservative Party, all the globalists that are entrenched in the Conservative Party, the big pharma lobbyists, the big business opportunists are all entrenched within the Conservative Party. And so he knew that, and so when he lost the leadership, he felt it was his last-ditch hope in order to make a change within the Conservative Party, but he left the Conservative Party on his terms, and he took a big chance, and he started the PPC. I'm not going to be talking about specific platform issues, because that can be found on our website, on the People's Party of Canada website. You can look up all the platform positions. But after this, the presentation's over at 7:30. I'll be taking questions and answers. If somebody does have something specific they'd like to discuss or talk about or ask me about, then we can do that then. There's 4 principles that undergird every policy and every principle within the PPC. Freedom, fairness, personal responsibility, and respect. These are the 4 issues that if a policy within the PPC doesn't meet this standard, well, it's not because it meets the standard, but it's because it's good, true, and just. These are freedom, fairness, personal responsibility, and respect. They undergird human dignity. They protect justice. They protect freedom. And this is what every policy of the PPC is for and about. So there's a little bit of I don't know if everyone can see the screen. It's the biggest screen I had at home that I could carry with me. So we have 4 parties that are what I call the establishment parties. We all want control of the hand that controls the people. Now, this seems to be a consequence of the structure, not only of the parties, but also of government. And what does the PPC want to do? The PPC wants to take those strings that are tying people to the control of the government and cut that. People need to be free in order to make their own choices, choose their own school, because you know communism is around the corner when government has control of health care and education. That is a very good sign that your country is hurtling towards communism and is embracing these neo-Marxist ideas. So the establishment parties all have the same corrupt structure. Now, the one thing that they all have is policy conventions. I was a conservative for a long time, and policy conventions seem like a great idea. It seems like this is where the little guy, the delegates, can have their voice heard. Now, I participated in 2003 in Winnipeg, and what I saw was the complete opposite of that. So what I saw there was the complete opposite, is that people come to join the Conservative Party in order to change it. People join the PPC because they believe in the ideas, and they believe the ideas can help us, and that they can take us out of the situation that we're in. So it's not because people join the PPC because they want to change it. That is absolutely not what we want to do. And also, all these parties, the four establishment parties, all have an executive that basically people can, if you're a big pharma lobbyist, you want to be in there. If you have a big business, you want to be in there, so you can direct the way the government goes and the way the government shapes its policies. And that is how, and so you think that a policy convention would be a great opportunity for people to go there and come up with their ideas and shape the party. But actually, if you're thinking that, everyone else is thinking that too. And so that's why we see the phenomenon now of all four parties almost having policies that are indistinguishable from each other. And so, you see, what do they have left? They don't have ideas. They're not interested in talking about ideas. They're interested in they define good and evil as good being control of power, and evil being the absence of power. And so we have this famous quote from our Prime Minister, where he says, "We're going to end this pandemic by proceeding with the vaccination. There is still a part of the population fiercely against it. They don't believe in science or progress and are very often misogynistic and racist. They take up some space. This leads us as a leader and as a country to make the choice. Do we tolerate these people?" We know there's 20% of us that are people like that in this room, immediately, out of hand, reject that. We know that's a lie. But, this is the bad part now, guys. Unfortunately, there's a percentage of the population that now believe in this. And then, there's a bigger portion of the population that now have the seeds of doubt sown within their minds that they think, maybe those anti-vaxxers are racist and misogynistic. Or suddenly we're now anti-vaxxers. We were never really anti-vaxxers before. And so now all these things are playing into people's minds, and the PPC rejects that. The PPC appeals to people's intellect and their reason and to their ability to choose for themselves. And he knows that, and Trudeau, I believe he made this statement very, very in a calculated way, because he knows this as well. He knows that there's going to be a percentage that will believe this. And the people that don't believe it, he'll create that separation, he'll create that division, which gets Canadians against each other. The PPC wants to unite Canadians together. So we don't have to necessarily even agree with each other. That doesn't matter. We don't have to like each other. But we do have to be united.
We like you, Peter.
So thank you. So how do people perceive the establishment party? So I went up online and I just looked to see, this was something on the left side of the screen, was Take Action. So this is a group that's an activist group. It's Campaign Life Coalition, and their headline is "Influence the Conservative Party in 2023." And they say that if you want to, basically our goal is to help get as many pro-lifers there to vote for vital pro-life, pro-family policies for pro-life candidates for National Council. So they're trying to encourage people, membership of their organization, to go to the policy convention, to change the party and to bring it back to their ideals. Unfortunately, the way the politicians see it, they say, oh, Campaign Life Coalition is here and they're trying to influence us, and they have 20 delegates here and they have a membership of 1,000. But then we have another group that runs completely contrary to what they stand for, and the politician has to make a decision. He says, well, am I going to back these guys who have 1,000 members, or do I back the ones who oppose them, but they can guarantee me 5,000 votes? So now it doesn't become about what is good, what is true, what is just. It becomes, they're doing a calculation, who am I going to back, or am I going to just stay quiet on this issue and try to get all their votes? And that's what we end up seeing happen more than having politicians willing to stand up and say, I'm not standing up to be a contrarian. I'm not standing up because I'm trying to be difficult and stand for these policies. I stand for them because they are right and they're going to make people's lives better. They defend human dignity, they defend freedom, and they defend justice. And so, the PPC is a party that is not going to change based on getting more votes. They will adapt and they will adjust policies, but they're not going to make a 180 in order to win more votes, or they're not going to stay quiet on an issue that is important to Canadians, that is important to human dignity and to freedom and to fairness. So one thing I hear a lot is, I don't trust any politicians. They all lie, right? I hear that all the time, and I'm sure most of you guys are saying that. And I guess I know that people want what's comfortable. They don't want the truth. They don't want someone to tell them that, actually, if you want a good life, you're going to have to work hard. If you want a good life, you're going to have to make sacrifice. If you want a good life, there are going to be difficult choices that you will have to make. Sometimes you will have to sacrifice. And as we know in our country, we have freedom because people were willing to make the greatest and ultimate sacrifice so we can have our freedom. And it continues to astound me how we're forgetting that. And so many of our population, of our citizenry, is forgetting that. And I guess I would imagine, I wonder if St. Paul, the apostle, was running for public office. I'm going to quote one of his things that he said. If anyone will not work, let him not eat. That's pretty darn harsh. That's pretty harsh. But some people don't want to hear that. They want to hear, you know what, we got cannabis on every corner for you. We're going to pay you in order to stay at home. You don't have to work. That's the kind of truth people want. And in history, how did Rome fell? Because of decadence. They kept voting people in who kept promising more stuff, free stuff. Promises of, take this and you'll live longer. Eat this, inject this into your body, you'll live longer. You'll be safe, trust me. How many times have we heard that? People need the truth. It's hard sometimes, but I think that's the only way. And eventually it wins. Is it going to win in this next election? It's not for me to say. All I can say is all I need to do is my conscience has to be clear. I have to say that I stood up for truth. I stood up for what was wrong. The PPC is doing that. And that's why I'm supporting them. That's why I'm a candidate. And that's why, God willing, if there will be an election this spring, I will be the candidate. But the lies are so ingrained now that the politicians don't even realize they're lying because they just want to tell people what they want to hear. And how many times, I've heard this also quite a few times. Oh, you know what, I'm just going to vote for the Conservatives because even though I agree with you 100%, I'm just going to vote for the Conservatives because, well, they have a chance of winning. I guess what I have to say to that is, if you're willing to compromise on the essence of who you are and what you believe, don't be surprised if the politicians do that as well. But if you stand for a politician and you vote for a politician who is willing to stand up for what is good, true, and just, and guess what? That politician may continue to support what you believe, rather than trying to, because where has more ego, where has egotistical ambition, more drive, where has that gotten us? It's gotten us to where we are. Where are the politicians, where are the men who are, and the women who are standing up, who are humble, who are willing to sacrifice, who are willing to serve? This is what we need more of, and less of the personal drive for power. That is not the end. The end is standing up for what's good, true, and just, because at the end of my life, at the end of the day, what is going to matter? That I won an election? I don't care if I win an election, if I go to hell. I need to stand up for what is true, good, true, and just, in order that when I take my last breath, that I will be able to get the reward that is really meaningful. And this is a quote from George Orwell in his book 1984. In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. We see that now. Not only do people not want to hear the truth, they actually have scorn towards you. They want to make your opinion illegal. They want to take your, basically you, and censor you or arrest you. And so this next quote comes from G.K. Chesterton, and it gives me a lot of anxiety in some sense, that all politicians start as idealists but end as opportunists. We have to make sure, and I know that the one thing that I need to be able to make sure of is that the PPC is a party that's built on ideals. And so if we're built on ideals, it's not going to be so much about the personality of the person who is running the party, the personality of the person who's running as a candidate. It's about, are the ideas right? Because now it's not even about ideas. People don't even care about ideas. They care about winning or losing. And that is why we know, that's why I believe, that this is no longer about just winning elections. It's a fight, not of ideas, but a fight of good and evil. And so these politicians, they surround themselves with people who are willing to compromise. And so of course they lie, because they see everyone around them lying as well. We have to break that. And the PPC can break that. So I'm going to bring up some common misconceptions, not misconceptions, but also complaints about the PPC. I can't support the PPC because they don't have a constitution. I've heard this many times before. And a constitution, to me, is like an instruction manual that tells you, how are you going to, what is this? It's a party, are you trying to get elected? Are you going to have candidates? Are you going to have a leader? Would it be absurd to say, I can't use a hammer because it doesn't have an instruction manual? Do I need an instruction manual to use this hammer? No, I think there are some things that as Canadians we've become accustomed to, and the PPC is using those good things, like for example our political structure, which is good. We're using that political structure, which people are accustomed to try to make the changes that are good for our country and for the people. Another thing I hear, I can't support the PPC because I want Trudeau out, and I'm willing to compromise on my own beliefs and vote Conservative rather than what I truly believe. If we do not vote our conscience, we will never change the direction of our country. We need to, because it does not, thank you. Yeah. Because I'm not running because I need to win or I want to win. Hopefully I will win, not because I want it, but because the ideas and the principles that I stand for and that the PPC stand for are principles that people see and that they realize will make their lives better and will make our country stronger and more united and working towards unity that through our policies and our structure. So what a constitution would have is how it's structured. This would be the instruction manual of the Constitution. It would say that we have a leader. Most people can see that. That's self-evident. Just the way a hammer, when you grab it, you know which end to grab. It has candidates. Self-evident. You know that thing at the claw is meant for pulling out nails, not for scratching your head, although it can be used for that too. And we're trying to get MPs elected to the House of Commons. This is also things that people are used to. We have riding or district associations. We raise money to fund election campaigns. We know that's what political parties do. And so we're using that knowledge that is ingrained into Canadians and that the PPC is using because people are used to that. We're building on our heritage and our political strength in order to continue in the same direction. A constitution only would affirm these very basic facts, as the PPC is attempting to gain power in a traditional way in Canada. So, one thing I've heard as well is that Maxime Bernier is controlled opposition. And so there's a little tweet here that Max tweeted out on January 25th. And it outlines the similarities between the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party. So Justin Trudeau, he said that during COVID, we're vaxxing all Canadians. Polyev, you're not vaxxing them fast enough. Trudeau, we need 500,000 immigrants. Polyev, remove the gatekeepers and get them in faster. Trudeau, let's send weapons and money to Ukraine. Polyev, not enough. Send more. There's not a lot of distinction between those two parties. It's basically a different color. With the PPC, we are for COVID. You choose for yourself. You want to get vaxxed? You get vaxxed. For immigration, we have people on the streets in St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, that are dying on the streets. We have the drug epidemic. That is an epidemic that is real, that is very, very serious. And we're bringing in 500,000 immigrants. We need to have that down to a sustainable level. And this is a great example of where if we have a different opinion from the mainstream establishment parties, they love to pick on us here that we're racist. Because we want to have a common sense discussion about immigration. Let's send money and weapons to Ukraine. Not enough. That is not our fight. Do we stand with Ukraine? Do we stand with Russia? We stand with people. We stand with human beings. Are we going to support the politics of Russia or the politics of Ukraine? It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. It doesn't help us as Canadians. And so the PPC has also been accused of being controlled opposition because Max is splitting the Conservative vote. Max is not splitting the Conservative vote. Max is the only one who is a choice for a Conservative vote. The other four parties, they're splitting the vote. They're splitting the vote four ways on the left. And so another reason, we're controlled opposition because we don't have a single seat. Oh, I love that one. We don't have a single seat. So that makes us controlled opposition. So some of this stuff makes zero sense, but people accept it, and now we're fighting these people who are saying these lies, and people are believing them. And so people are accusing that Max is a globalist.
Yeah.
This is great. I love this one too. In fact, if you go to the People's Party of Canada website, you will see very clearly Max wants us out of the UN. He wants us out of the Paris Accord that basically allows extra governmental agencies to tell Canadians what they should be doing. No, we're not part of it. We don't want any part of that. We want out of the WEF, the WHO, anywhere where there's going to be control of Canadians by an extra government or or a single government trying to control Canadians. No, we need to take pride and have pride in our own country. Now, I was talking about controlled opposition in the previous slide. Now, it's a real strategy that was used in the Soviet Union, where the strategy is to get a movement that's gaining momentum to become divided. But it's also a spectrum, which ranges from innocent intent to devious undermining of the movement. Now, I'm going to give you an example of where we could all become controlled opposition at one point or another. Let's say, for example, I know that the mask was a starting point for the vaccine, which is the next step is the vaccine mandate, which is the next step is the digital ID. So I know now that wearing a mask is the originating point for this cascade of very serious events that will lead to our taking away of our freedoms. So now, if I wear the mask, I know that I'm living a lie. And as Solzhenitsyn said in 1974, when he was being exiled from Russia, live not by lies. That is the one thing we can do, live not by lies. And thank you. Thank you. And so if we accept the lie and we wear the mask, sometimes we just don't want to fight it. I get it. We're all weak. We all have times when we just don't feel like fighting it. Sometimes that happens. Does that make us controlled opposition? I guess so, in a way. But it also makes us human. It makes us sometimes not wanting to have that fight. Right? So am I going to judge people for making their own decisions? I'm going to be happy if they're standing and trying to fight for truth. I mean, I'm going to give one more example of a really damaging, series of events where people were pointing at each other saying, you're a controlled opposition, no, you're a controlled opposition. And during this last provincial election, we had two small parties that were just coming up, the Ontario Party and the New Blue Party, and they were both pointing at each other that they're controlled opposition. Look, they don't even have to like each other. But they do have to work together, and they have to stand together. And so we have to make sure that we recognize that we're all fallen, and that when somebody's pointing to us that we're controlled opposition, that we can't go back to them and say, you're controlled opposition. We just have to love them and explain to them with clarity and charity that we want to move our country forward. We want freedom, justice, defense of human dignity, and we want personal responsibility and respect for every Canadian. And so, thank you. So, during the times of communism, I'm talking about this a lot, about communism, because I feel it's on our doorstep and we're hurtling in that direction. The leaders will plant people to sow this doubt and division and discredit the movement by perpetrating violence. We've seen that during the trucker convoy, that's been debunked now, where we saw that there was that on the CBC, the swastika, that was at the trucker convoy. That's being debunked as being absolute lies. But it's too late. People have already seen it. It's already been ingrained into their heads. And so now they don't even want the truth. In fact, if you tell them the truth, they will get mad at you.
It was Trudeau's photographer that took that picture.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And it was at the hotel where they are to be mistaken. So this controlled opposition, they were trying to use it to discredit that movement. That movement, which was tomorrow is the anniversary of the enactment of the Emergencies Act, and we cannot forget that day. We have to remember that day, and I think it would be a good idea to do something on that day. Maybe go wave a flag on a bridge. In some small way. Remember the sacrifice that many of these truckers made in order to go there. Many people made in order to be there, in order to be part of this movement. So what makes the PPC structure different? People join the PPC because they they agree with what the party stands for. The establishment parties have policy conventions that can be hijacked by special interest groups. And as I was saying before at the policy convention I was at in Winnipeg for the Conservative Party, it was hijacked by a group of people that were advocating for the forgiveness of student loans. I couldn't understand. I was at a Conservative Party convention and I was hearing so much of that. And there was also a lot of people that were trying to push the Green movement, and they've been very successful in the Conservative Party to push the whole climate change scam that is basically a globalist scheme in order to control people, and it was being pushed at the Conservative Party. That is why the PPC is not going to have these policy conventions. As far as I know, I hope, as things stand right now, there is no plans to have a policy convention, which is I'm very grateful for, having been a part of a Conservative policy convention that absolutely, I believe, has degraded the Conservative Party to just another color of the same thing. So the PPC platform will not change, but it will develop. The establishment parties are willing to do a 180 on an issue in order to win more votes. The PPC, there is no executive in the same way that the establishment parties have. The establishment parties have executive that always have a ulterior motive and have a motive for themselves. And I saw that as well at the Conservative Party, that the people who were in the executive were there because there was something for them. There was something in it for them. Also, I think many of you will recognize that PPC candidates are happy to discuss ideas and take a stand on an issue because the platform will not change. But as an example, when Aaron O'Toole was discussing vaccine mandates, he supported them. Then he backed down from them. Then he supported them again. So you'll notice the candidates were always afraid to talk about it because they didn't know if their leader was going to flip-flop again. Max has never flip-flopped on an issue since he started the PPC. It's out there on the website. He's never flip-flopped. When people say he's a globalist, I point them to the website. If they say he's just like another establishment politician, go to the website and see for yourself. He's standing for these ideas. He's never flip-flopped on any one of these ideas. We're going to wrap it up. We're just gone a little bit over time. So we're going to have a Q&A right after this. The PPC. So in conclusion, what makes the PPC different and unique is that the policies will not change. But if new policies need to be developed, they will. The PPC believes that the role of politics is to make life better for the people and not to have this egotistical desire and drive and naked ambition for power. The structure of the PPC will also be maintained so that infiltrators who want to weaken our party, weaken our ideas, cannot enter the party in the same way they enter the establishment parties. Of course they're trying, we know that, but that's why Max, when he started the party, he was very acutely aware of this fact, and he knew this, that we need to protect ourselves from these infiltrators who want to come in and just make us another color. In closing, one other point. The PPC can never join any other parties, otherwise it'll lose its essence. Now, in the mid-90s, the Reform Party had enormous success. What did they do when they had that success? They joined the Conservative Party. They gave up on their principles. They believed that they could change the Conservative Party when they did that. We saw that is not possible, and that didn't happen. And so, if Max said, you know what, we're gonna join the Conservative Party because we can get some people to win, guess what? I would be out. I would not be interested in that. And that is why I'm a member of the PPC. I'm a candidate for the PPC because I know he won't do that. I know for him it's not necessarily, that is not the most important thing to him. It's standing up for what's good, true, and just. And in closing, the final statement I want to make is that I know the PPC will win, but the only uncertainty is when. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move to the Q&A portion, but first, I don't know how we're going to do this. There's like 1,000 items over there on that table. I think we're going to have to maybe do this. Hey, Sam? Hey, Sam? I think we might have to kind of close this up as we go, because if we just try to do this...
Well, then how do you check your trap light?
How do you check your trap lights?
How do I what?
Check your trap lights. I said, oh, check my trap lights.
No, I didn't set any traps, Paul.
No, well, then, like you're checking your trap lights, you're checking all those.
Okay, so we'll give it 5 more minutes, and then, so if anybody else wants to go over there, and